Hello, my name is Micaiah. Welcome to game design number 6. I'm working on a game called Hamlet. It's available on Steam for Haven Studios. You can leave a comment in this video if you like, or if you really want, please clap. No, really, please clap for me. And for Hamlet, we're working on a bunch of subsystems, and one of that subsystem is time. So that's we're kind of talking about this game design system to talk about the future, sort of some of the core concepts we need to think about, and that's inclusive into this game design number 6 is just talking about time. But what kind of time? Well, time really is this time management. We're going to be talking about some time systems in general. Well, in this specific case, and then we'll have the Unity time demo, and then we will have a conclusion. Hopefully, we're not quite sure what we're working on next, but then we'll be, of course, talking a little bit of Hamlet. So, time by Micaiah Stevens. Yes, it's just also time systems. Um, we could think of time as a 12 months out of the year, which is sort of interesting why there is 13 months in this year, but we have January, February, March, April, and excuse if some of these are misspelled, but hopefully they are correct. Um, it's just text files. Maybe we can read it better. And then we also have to include January because we want to include a sort of pre-month and an end month, and a pre-year and end year, and the sort of portion of that system. So time systems is also sort of we're not just we're talking about time in the literal sense in this instance, but time in general is sort of these time management systems are kind of like this idea of like for instance, Code Monkey talked about the fact that uh, no, I can't remember. Anyways, there's another YouTuber that was talking about time recently too, and it's like I've worked on so many iterations of this, but kind of one of you have this delta time, which is sort of the 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 frame rate that's going on constantly in Unity. You know, there's almost 60 frames a second, which is 60 FPS, which is sort of just a detached idea of this. Just every run as often as you can, but limit to 60 frames a second. And we're kind of talking about that in some sense, but we sort of limit this out to ticks. We have 30 ticks a second or something, or 30 ticks of game time, which is sort of this idea that every so often you have a set limit of milliseconds of time that equals a tick, which is sort of one of the systems we sort of need. In a roguelike, you can sort of think of this as every time you take an action, you move, you use a combat system that's sort of a tick of time or a move action. But in this, actually, we're actually talking about the actual physical implement of time. So we have a time demo for this Unity demo right here, which we need to work on full screen. But this is just signifying that in this demo, time is automatically accruing. So every sort of game tick, there is a day accruing. So we have months, days, and years. And then we have this total number of years, total number of days, and the age is sort of how many age in month in our example. So if we want to say, and we have this variable to check only for the day. So if you want to say that we're on day 6 and we want to end the month, we actually have to go through from day 6 and continually add up to end of the month for January. And we can also do the same thing for a year. So if in our 1 year has passed, there's 361 days because now a day just ticked over, and there are 12 ages or 12 months that have passed. So if we take another age, which is 24 age, it's sort of like age of man, but it's sort of like the idea is this age in months. Anyways, you can also click on this one only day, and if we hit it will now tick off and say that it ticked the end of the day for the month of January in year 2. It just sort of gives you an indication, which I thought is a pretty good demonstration. It's just sort of you can also turn off auto increment if you want to in this example, where we sometimes you'd want to not implement the day. And then I think also there's another system that we work in place where it's like at the end of the it ticks off, auto ticks through the day, and then you have to sort of signify that we're ready to end the month in a gameplay. This is a pretty cool system we were working on. I think we fixed this sort of bug where you can now. It's the idea is that this is where we're on, and this we need some sort of title where we're at, but then you can, or maybe a tooltip, but you can also click on this panel test, which sort of you can actually go through and still use the data, and we come back through and say that we're so it's just this general idea, and then you can sort of see that this is the open page, but then it signifies that hey, I can actually click on this window, which is the change in the page, so it's signifying that you can open it, and then you click back here, which oops, I guess it didn't clear off. Yeah, interesting. It didn't clear off the total. That's just a slight bug. So that's kind of the time system. I know it's kind of generic and simple, but it's sort of a lot of these things are you need a multiple of these time systems. It's not very code centric. It's quite simple, but it's sort of some of the underlying systems of talking about these times through ticks, which are this idea of in time management in general. You have ticks, which are sort of set. Like that's sort of what's happening in the background here. We got every so often it ticks off the time every point 3 seconds. Point 3. There's a coroutine that's running that sort of it kicks off the day, and then every time the day clicks over, it should end the month. We can also think about time as in the time.delta time, which is sort of the unity 60 frames per second. It's the delta time is how much time in a set amount of time that the processes ran, and we came back and say, hey, there's 0.0015 0.0015 of delta time passed over. It'll never equal. I was talking about someone recently. It's not a 0 to 1. You can't say, hey, delta time will never equal 1.0 because it's just a process amount of time that happened in the background. You could add time plus equal delta time to time component time variable to say time variable plus equals time dot delta time, and that will eventually hit 1.0, which will almost signify 1 second is passed. But we also have through CodeMonkey, he has this idea of that you can run a sort of a separate sort of coroutine that runs a tick system, which we might need to sort of implement all these systems together. But in this quick demo, we needed a way to sort of signify time passing. And then too, it's sort of like, I don't think the game runs in the background. One of the things is we can sort of say, there's no limits to this, but you can sort of say, you can click through time individually. And I'll let this run because I wanted to kind of see what it's going to do. And then there's 30 days in a month. It's sort of a set time period. Just to sort of signify, oh yeah, it may not increment the month because it's sort of this is relying on an underlying system that says, hey, it was ticking. It's sort of this idea that time is ticking, passing in the background, but then the end of the month, sort of like a end of the month, is an entire process. Anyways, and then so now that we're in the January month, we can actually show that here. When we click that we're into the month of February, and then part of that system is sort of this idea that even if we click on the end of the end of the month might be a little bit easier. Even if we click on the end of the month, we still need to process the time, the same way. It's like we passed day 2 of the month of March already. So if we want to enter into April, we end this month of March through the 30 days it is in March. It's just a set time limit in the system, and then now it auto now that we're into April, it auto implements April. So we could pass in 10 days or whatever, and then end the month, and we'll come back through and we'll see that we were on the end of 10 days, and then we just record. This is sort of a time tracker system that keeps track of these various systems. So it's sort of a design goal of the system, and then you can turn off these various options, which I thought was pretty cool. And then it's sort of we need tooltips and lots of and then there's obviously a bug here where we need to fix, but that's just sort of something to handle. And then anyways, you can also span through any number of years, and hopefully this it won't break because it only keeps track of so many. I think it's like, yeah, it only keeps track of so many events. But I mean, it definitely knows that we have these variables that are running, and then we can see that we're age 216, which is 18 years of 12 months, and then that's It's 216 times 18, which comes out to about 6,400 and 80 some odd days, which sounds about right at 30 days apiece, and then we're on day 7, so that's why it's 87. So, anyways, that's the whole idea of this system. It's just meant to sort of showcase some of these time systems and sort of get a things you need to happen per day. You need to eat food per day. You can have kids every 9 months. There's just going to be a generic system of this, which is kind of the idea behind this whole thing, and this is kind of how we implemented it. The future, we're not quite sure where we're going to be. We could, there's quite a bit of, we need to implement the data project from, we have one sort of game project that has all our data projects. We want to move that over into the project inventory or project RPG or whatever we're calling it's the 2D project data, which is project inventory might be I don't, sort of what it's called now, or it's called looter as well. It's sort of this idea of this loot system, but we're implementing all our data core files into that. So that's probably, we'll have to look at that. And then once we're done with that, we'll have to come back and see what we want to do for game design. So hopefully some of these are code centrics, some of these are not. Hopefully we get a pretty good, cool things about these. We are sort of ahead now. It's Monday on the 26th, and we have game design number 5 coming out on the Thursday. I think these are being released on Thursday at noon. Anyway, so then on the quite a bit away from here, it will be by the March 7th. So so somehow someone just accidentally hit 2 weeks in our time demo here, and hopefully that will be we'll have a lot more interesting. And these are kind of, they're not meant to be code heavy systems. The combat system was code heavy. This one was not meant to be very code centric because it's sort of these. It's just meant to sort of talk about these cohesive ideas of game design and then show off this really cool demo that hopefully will expand and add in more panes and different system. We can see different systems of what happened, and it's all part of this idea of this project inventory, which is kind of two different sort of systems. Um, One's like a kingdom management systems and one's a combat system. So hopefully those will somehow meld together and be cool. Anyways, thanks very much. And that's all sort of the ideas of testing out various RPG-like elements for Hamlet, which is available on Steam if you want to check it out, or and leave a comment. So thanks very much. You take care. Have a good one.